This is exciting. This has to be the most exciting podcast I've ever done, and probably could be the most exciting one I ever do. Welcome, everybody. Welcome. I'm Anthony Parent, your host of IRS Medic. And with me, of course, is the great John Richardson, who has been working away and helping us get the word out. His analysis into these double taxation issues has been fantastic, has helped me as a tax attorney, has helped my clients, and helped people who aren't even our clients. We've been helping people, and guess who we have on today? It is none other than the random Republican guy, Solomon Yue, the person who I would say is probably the number one person organizing everyone and getting this done. Solomon, thank you so much. This is incredible. Donald Trump has promised to end double taxation. The thing that people said was impossible, they said would never happen, that this could not be done. We're wasting our time. The 14 or 15 of us, whoever their small little group, here we are. And you have done something incredible. Thank you so much, Solomon. Thanks and welcome to the show. So what I'm going to ask you is the first thing I want to know is, how did this happen? Can you take us back to how Donald Trump actually agreed to end double taxation? Because we didn't see it coming. Can you just take us back? And maybe let's just not go ancient history. We'll talk about the ancient history a little bit, but just talk about, last month, what happened, what went down with it.
Actually, I will take you to January.
Okay.
First of all, thank you for having me. It is an honor and pleasure to be on your show, Low Rent Podcast Show.
Right. And by the way, Solomon and I are referring to some criticism that we got. Solomon is a random Republican dude, and the rest of us are all low rent, which I guess somehow diminishes our argument. I'm not sure exactly how being low rent would do that, but hey, look, when you have no argument back, you attack the man, don't you? Right. So,
right.
All right, Mr. Random Republican, bring us back to January.
And when President Trump personally worked on RNC platform for 2024 and shrink it from 87 pages long to 16 pages and with 20 promises. And guess what happened? I was the one pass a RNC resolution to move this country from citizenship-based taxation to residency-based taxation to end double taxation 10 years ago. And then put it in the platform. It had been in the platform until January this year. So Trump took it out. And I realized he didn't even know what is RBT or CBT, whatever, right? You learn something from that. So then I also realized in the same January, I authored and passed unanimously the RNC resolution condemning Biden-Harris open border policy and calling for deportation. Now, that resolution got into Trump's 20-point promises. As point one, seal the border. As point two, conducting the massive deportation. I said, policy-wise, and I'm good, right? So wait a little bit longer, fast forward to 1 month ago. He was talking about no tax on tips. Whoa.
Yeah.
Talking about no tax on Social Security income. Now, I see similarities on both accounts. One, those waiters and waitresses don't want to report and pay tax on tips. Americans abroad don't want to report and pay tax on non-U.S. sourced income tax. And second point is all retirees see their Social Security checks. Tax on that is a double taxation.
Right.
So now we have something in common. So give me an opportunity to reapproach President Trump. And I made a couple of philosophical arguments as well. One, America first also means American citizens first, regardless where they're residing and where they are working, right? That's a point number one. And two, and this double taxation thing really turned Americans into second-class citizens. I'm talking about overseas Americans, right?
Absolutely, it's so
And if we're going to do something for service workers and also for American retirees, we need to do something for 9 million overseas Americans as well.
yeah.
Voila. And he came back. Oh, by the way, there is a little story here. Now, this kind of stuff cannot be authorized by campaign political director, campaign manager, or campaign communications director. That thing have to go to the president directly for approval regarding language, okay? So first, he gave me the verbiage. The verbiage is, President Donald J. Trump supports ending the double taxation of overseas Americans. That's exact verbiage I'm authorized to use. Then comes with written statement. They gave the written statement actually to Wall Street Journal first. They broke the story as exclusive.
Well, I do want to back up here because there's something very important that happened during this. And one of the challenges that John and I had, and Keith, who's been on here a lot, is explaining the problem to people. And the way that we've been explaining it, I don't think people understood it. We've been saying end citizenship-based taxation. Well, if the topic's so complicated, we had to have a video explaining what citizenship-based taxation is. And so rhetorically, when people need an hour explanation of what it is, you're kind of in a losing argument because they don't know what you're talking about, and they're not going to put that energy into learning what the term is that you're opposing. You need to find a shorthand, and that is the thing that you did, is that you didn't refer to it as ending citizenship-based taxation. How was it referred to? And that's the story I want to know. How did that come into being?
My communications director and was working with Trump campaign senior advisor and also political director. And by using the term and citizenship-based taxation, and everybody look at her like she's crazy. What are you talking about, right? Right, exactly. I said, gentlemen, let me rephrase it. Really is ending double taxation for Americans. Now, I learned actually from Donald J. Trump, okay? If you remember, he wrote those books, talk about you have to be ready for a 30-second elevator pitch if you want to sell an idea to somebody, right? And after he became the president, the pitch is 15 seconds. You can't get there within 15-second pitch.
Okay.
You're done. They're not going to, he's not going to give you another look, right? And so I basically boils down to 15 seconds, less than 15 seconds. They got it. And they thought this is so important. Once President promised to do this, you can count on he is going to deliver his campaign promises. I support him. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I guess, what did you say to him exactly? That's, I really, look, in this precious amount of time that you have with him, do you remember what your exact words were? And do you remember what his reaction was when you said it?
I put it in text message format, so he would be able to take a look what I put together.
Oh, wow.
So one, of course, is the ending double taxation and why. I even use a American teacher teaching English in France and explain, anything above 126,500 will be taxed. And even though the tax bill could be $50, $100, but pay the compliance industry and CPA, that bill will be 800 or 1,000. That is a burden.
You know
And
what?
that is
This would be a good time to break, and I want to ask John a couple of questions because here's the problem that we have. So in our group, we've been trying to repeal FATCA, get end citizenship-based taxation, and Jim was on the other, Jim Gossert was on the other day. He mentioned, he's like, really, Anthony, there's only a few of us. I'm like, oh, you're right. And I'm thinking, I'm like, wait a second. And this is the thing that is amazing me. It just amazes me. There's, again, like what, 15, 20 people involved in this, Solomon, over the years, right? And massive change to the tax code. And this is the thing, the amount of people who have been working and getting rid of this is less than what many tax firms have working for them, right? My point is this, that if the tax firms believe that, if they had an integrity, if they actually had the best interest of their clients, if they actually had the best interest of their clients, they would have joined us and we would have been overwhelmed. But it was amazing how few. And in fact, we really don't have too many others, other attacks. John, would you, I mean, where are you on the tax industry here? I mean, this is, and I just want to get your feedback so far of what Solomon says. So let me just check in with you, John. Thank you so much for joining us today. I mean, that's the thing. It's like we could have used some support and we didn't get any, right?
Well, your question is, do I think the tax industry, the compliance industry is supporting ending citizenship? Is that your question?
That's my question, yeah.
Oh, absolutely not. I mean, I think in fairness, I think that there are some who do. I mean, I know a lot of people in the industry, as you might expect, and they run the whole spectrum of humanity, as you might expect, and there are some who, really.
We have many on this channel who watch it too, so I would say that we have a lot of.
By and large, since the rollout of FATCA and the Obama FBAR fundraiser in 2011, this has created an industry, okay, that didn't really exist before of tax accountants, lawyers, financial planners to a degree. And no, I don't think that they are as an industry. No, they're not interested in getting rid of this. Okay, I mean, the furthest they will go is, well, it should be easier to comply. And there were some. I mean, there have been a lot of articles and a lot of commentary on President Trump's announcement, but this week in particular, I saw two pieces of commentary from fairly well-known expat tax preparation firms that really define the issue as a compliance issue and not as a double tax. And I think that this is, they're either flat out lying or they don't know what they're doing. One of the two, and one is as bad as the other, right?
Kind of, right? Yeah, that's where we are. And I mean, that's the thing. We could have, but you know what? I guess this is like, well, even if we have those numbers can't make up for our dedication. And I don't know if anyone's been more dedicated than.
Well, Anthony, it has been. You say 15 or 20. I don't even think it's that high.
I don't know. Right? Yeah.
I mean, I would like to think that I personally know the people who've been involved in this journey. So certainly Solomon's been a force of nature. Jim Gossert. On the political side, I mean, not even the the people who claim to be the leaders of like the Americans Abroad Caucus and this in Congress. I mean, they haven't really been all that helpful. If anything, I think that they've sort of, found ways to divert the issue, divert attention from the issue. So I don't think it's 15 or 20. I think I bet it's under 10, like who've really been, it is under 10 who've been working on this for years. That's for sure. Okay.
Yeah.
But that's all right. in a sense, because I think that among the small group of people who've been working on this, I think there's been a recognition that everybody has sort of a valuable contribution. I don't think there's been a huge emphasis on, everybody has to agree on every aspect of it. I mean, I think it's more of an appreciation of what the small number of people as individuals can bring, to this, right?
Yeah.
So, it's funny you asked me. I think in one of the was I surprised by this? No, I'm not. I'm not surprised by this at all. I mean, I've been sort of, part of this ecosystem of working on this problem for a lot of years. So why shouldn't there be, some tangible result, right?
Yes, you're right. And we've had incredible, and we've had incredible people. And I really would say that we've had incredible people on this, throughout. And that's really the thing. It's not really the numbers game. It's the quality. And Solomon, and I would say this, and I described you as the unstoppable Solomon.
I appreciate that.
And because I met, the first time I met you in person was at the FACA hearing. And, this is what I just remember of you. You were running the show. You really were. And I remember you getting everyone, hey, we're going over RNC. We're going to have a press release. We're going to back up everything that we just did. You're very thorough, very methodical. And that's what I noticed. And you took action. You're just like, I'm in charge. This is what we're going to do. And everyone, and we're like, yep. Okay, great. Let's fit there. So I was really impressed. Now, what are the criticisms you got? Let me just try to get this up here. There's been some criticism of you, Solomon, and that's what we're referring to. Let me try to find where I have that the screenshot of. I have way too many open windows here. Let me try to get that. Oh, here it is. Okay, here it is. Let me get this one up here. This one just cracked me up. And this is the thing is that we've, with this ending double taxation proposal, we've put, the Democrats that are now in a position, and this is what I love about it. That because of that rhetorical device of ending citizenship or ending double taxation, now you could say, wait, if someone's opposed to it, say, wait, you're in favor of double taxation of Americans? Why is that? Why do you think American? So what a bet! Wow. Now how do you defend against that? Well, this is sort of how they're doing. Again, they really can't attack our argument, so they have to attack the man. So this is kind of some article I read here, and I read this, and Solomon read it too. This was in Daily Cause, and this is really it. Trump's pitch didn't rise organically. In fact, it looks like he made up this whole plank of tax policy platform because basically one random Republican dude asked him to. Solomon Yue, who ends it, let me try to get this, as the advocacy group Republicans Overseas. So there you go. So I think number one, and this is the thing we talked about, Jim, on Wednesday, this was not this actually did raise very organically, right? I mean, there was I'm not a paid lobbyist. John, are you a paid lobbyist?
I'm not a paid anything, unfortunately.
And Solomon, you're not a paid lobbyist. You weren't
Nope.
paid, were you?
Nope.
All right. So I guess that organically part has just been disproven. This is somebody who just doesn't know what they're talking about. And in fact, it looks like he made up this whole plank because basically of one random dude. Okay. So why don't you get wait, I don't even have.
I think it might be worth reminding people.
I'm sharing the screen. Hang on. I thought, can you see this?
Anthony,
Yeah.
I think it might be worth reminding people that this is a moral issue. Okay. This hounding people who don't live in the United States.
Yeah.
So, let's not paint this as just, a number of issues, one of a number of issues, to try to get into a platform. This is a significant moral issue.
Right.
It deserves to be there. Okay. And it should have been there, years and years ago. Okay.
All right. Let's see here. Why? Oh, man.
That is the very reason I got involved on this issue. Remember, after Obama passed FACA and the overseas Americans renounced their citizenships, we put two at a hearing, and Daniel and the other lady,
Donna
Donna,
Lee.
right. And I introduced Donna to Senator Rand Paul. And those stories are horrible, okay? And I grew up in communist China, survived Mao's Cultural Revolution, and escaped, found freedom in America, became US citizen by choice. So I know how precious is my US passport. And they have to give up their US passport just because FACA tyranny. And to me, this is so unjust on one hand. On the other hand, is so unconstitutional. That was the reason I hired Jim Bob to sue IRS. So that go all the way back to 2014. It was a moral issue for me. It still is a moral issue for me.
And no, and yeah, I'm with you. It is a moral issue, absolutely. Oh my! So that was in 2014. You hired Jim Bob, who was counsel on Citizens United on that. So
that's correct.
The guy knows how to win. Fascinating individual. And it was a pleasure to meet him, by the way, at the FACA hearing in 2017. Right. That was amazing. It's fun to kind of meet your heroes, I guess. And so now we're going to. I want to talk about. Some of the things that people are saying. Oh, actually, you know what? Let's do this. I want to show basically, the fact that, again, this has been going on for a while. And the other thing, too, is that the depth of your, I guess, penetration into the political process really can't be understated. That you're not, and this is, I think the point is I think you understand the burden of proof that you have, basically, the burden and what's required to do it. So I wanted to share some screens, just basically, you out and about. Here you go. So here's some slides you've been working with. Who do we have there? We have
Senator Mike Lee and Senator
Marco Rubio.
Mark Rubio. And Senator Mike Lee, actually, after FACA passed, I took him to 3 cities European tour to hear from Americans abroad, Democrats, independents, and Republicans. So he knew firsthand. The reason is so important, okay, guys? Trump gets elected again. He is on the short list as nominee for U.S. Supreme Court. And on top of that, he is a constitutional Republican like me. We put a constitution before our party politics. And so he got it. He totally understand this kind of process. So the next thing, those people are very important to me. And the reason is, next process really is sausage making process.
Yeah.
In sausage making process, you have to do babysitting. What I envision is that ending double taxation will become part of Trump 2025 tax reform package. That means at least those are 5 entities I have to work with and make sure the process going through properly and to get what we want for 9 million overseas Americans. White House, 3 entities, communications shop, political shop, and legislative shop. Then House Ways and Means Committee and Senate Finance Committee. And that's why when you have senators' support, they will assign staff members to work with me and work with the Senate Finance Committee, right? So now you got a 2 right there. Now, I don't have a picture. I don't see you have a picture for Senator Rand Paul. Now, Rand Paul is another big one.
Yep.
And because Rand actually sponsored a repeal FACA bill for me as well. Okay, so that kind of, you got 3 senators, well-known, well-respected, could help us to go through this sausage-making process on the Senate side, right?
Yeah. Yep. And and Jim, when Jim was on the show on Wednesday, he goes, Rand Paul didn't need to show up, and he did mention him, like, and I forgot. It's like, yeah, no, that was extraordinary. That Rand
Senator showed up to
was
testify himself. Yes.
that was completely extraordinary, and I got to say, he's got some serious star power.
Yeah.
Oh my! And I couldn't believe he's actually taking time out to testify, and he's so well spoken. That was amazing. That you got him there at the FACA hearing. That's just amazing. All right, let's go through some other pictures.
Oh, Anthony.
Yeah, go ahead.
On that, it's funny. I was talking to somebody the other day. So Rand Paul's is it Ron Paul's son, right?
Yeah.
In 2012, Ron Paul was seeking the Republican nomination, and in a very, very memorable debate, they were talking about building a wall. Okay. And what Ron Paul said, and he was the only person who said this, was be careful. That wall will not be used to keep people out. It will be used to keep people in. And I've often thought back to that as being an incredibly insightful and prescient comment, because I think it's important to remind people that it may be that the specific context of what we're talking about today, what brings us together, may be Americans abroad. But I think to give this broader relevance, what we're really talking about is the opportunity for U.S. citizens living in the United States to be able to leave, right?
Yeah.
And the number, I mean, maybe there's 9 million Americans abroad, but there's 350 million of them living in the United States. And it's extremely important to understand that these rules that bring us together, including things like FATCA, the end game, okay, is that these things can, and they are, but it's not visible, and will absolutely be used to keep Americans inside the United States, exactly as Ron Paul predicted in that debate. And nobody, of course, took him seriously. But I mean, I'd be happy to see if I can do a quick search of that. It's a very short clip, and send it over to you if you like right now.
Yeah, if you want to send it over, I'll try to get that up.
Be able to find
In the meantime, something that I want to cover is that Solomon, one of the criticisms, I guess, and maybe it's legitimate, that if there's an end to double taxation, rich people can skirt overseas and say, see you later, IRS, and game the system. And you told me ahead of the show that there's a mechanism in place that makes gaming it pretty difficult. Can you explain a little bit about that?
Certainly. 2017, I took our package to House Ways and Means Committee and to be part of Trump tax reform legislation. And now, due to the scoring issue, we couldn't get the score done in time. The bill was moving so fast. They want to be done within 30 or 45 days.
Big fences and guns, sure, we can secure the borders. A barbed wire fence with machine guns, that would do the trick. I don't believe that's what America is all about. I just really don't. We can enforce our law. If we had a healthy economy, this wouldn't be such a bad deal. People are worried about jobs. But every time you think about this toughness on the border and ID cards and real IDs, think that it's a penalty against the American people too. I think this fence business is designed and may well be used against us and keep us in.
I'm sending this over to you, Anthony. I suggest you play it. I found it very easily.
Okay. All right, great. Let me get that up. All right. So okay.
Yeah. So that issue raised by a Democrat House member on the Ways and Means Committee, and two lawyers on the House Ways and Means Committee actually said something was very, very interesting. And we can put it in rail guard to prevent that. So they explained how. Basically, they said, you got to stateside millionaires want to game the system by moving overseas to avoid capital gains tax on their stocks, say, okay, on their real estate properties, real estate transactions. But here, the problem for them, if we put in 2 years residency requirement, overseas residency requirement, that means when market go up, they're ready to move out. And by the time they meet their residency requirement, market already going down. So it's very difficult. It's very risky to do that. No.
Well, and I would say the probably the larger problem with it trying to game the system here is that, well, if your investments are in the U.S., it's U.S. sourced income. It doesn't matter. You're going to
That's correct.
No matter what.
And that's another point. Okay, and it's a U.S. based income, and we are in my explanation. You go back to the teacher, U.S. teacher teaching English in Paris.
Yep.
And I said, if this teacher got a house and didn't sell the house and moved to France, and now the house is a rental home and got a rental income, that would be considered as U.S. sourced income. Yeah, by all means, she should have paid tax on that.
Okay.
To Uncle Sam. Okay. So this thing from President Trump's mind, it's so clear, right? It's a fairness. And where you earn an income, you pay tax. You don't have an income, in my mind now, okay? And you can do a postcard, check off the box. It says, I have no U.S. source income this year. You're done. You don't have to pay compliance industry $800, $1,000 or more, right?
No, and I hate it, and that's why And look, and honestly, for me, this is why I got involved in it, because I couldn't believe it. I couldn't stand it, and I couldn't stand how unfair it was, and I had to charge just regular people insane amounts of money,
right,
in order to become in compliance. And I was like, I got to do something about this. I can't. Yeah, it's benefiting me, but this isn't good. This isn't good. I got to speak out against this, and that's why I've been truly representing my clients by saying, hey, you know what? I'll really represent you. I'll change it. I'll try to hopefully get the law changed so you don't even have to hire me.
Right.
And that's really, in their best interest, because it is so bad. And, we have the nightmare stories all over the place. And I think one of the things too, that is just so misunderstood is that, the idea is that it's this ridiculous idea that it's these wealthy people overseas, and they just can't, and I would just say they can't stop the class envy. They can't stop it. They don't know how to stop it. They're like, oh, what does someone else have? I got to get a share. I got to get a share. Right? We got to get it. Well, they can't have it. They can't have that. And somehow by weakening other people, that makes you stronger. And it's not true.
Anthony, I think to be clear here, the people whose lives are being destroyed by this are not the wealthy.
No,
they're simply middle-class people
mm-hmm.
who are trying to make a living for themselves and their families, and provide a pension for themselves. These are the people who are being absolutely destroyed by this because of all the ridiculous rules and prohibitions. Yeah. I don't know what we mean by wealthy, but I think in the context of this discussion, I think it probably would include a U.S. citizen resident in the United States with huge amounts of passive income, which is largely U.S. source. And quite obviously, the U.S. always retains the right to tax, as do all countries, income source in that country. So in a very real sense, if you compare the United States to, say, Canada or Australia, right? The way Canada and Australia, and I'm not suggesting that this should be the blueprint, but just to emphasize what is possible, right? The way they do this is, all right, you want to leave Canada and sever tax residency with Canada. we're going to treat it as a deemed sale of your assets, right? Now, I'm not proposing that as the U.S. solution necessarily, but I mention that to make the point that every other country in the world seems to manage this problem. Okay, every other country. Somehow, it's only the United States, that has this, this extreme paranoia of somehow wealthy people, whoever they may be, avoiding taxes. And
Yeah.
I think that's completely wrong. I don't think they avoid taxes. Because as long as they have U.S. source income, they're not avoiding taxes, plainly and simply. So, what is the big deal here? Why persecute a group of honest, hardworking people who really want to be compliant with these
Right. They
laws,
do.
forced to renounce because they can't comply with these laws? Why persecute that group of people, under the guise of somehow, well, the wealthy might get away with something? I mean, as long as they have U.S. assets and income like every other country, they're subject to taxation on that, right?
Right.
Yeah,
And
John, I just want to, you're bringing up such a great point about this, and really, who does the IRS attack? And I'm going to tell you this: it's not the rich. I know that.
no,
I know who they go after. And the reason why is, for whatever reasons here, the IRS doesn't have the resources. Oh, I know. Here's the reason why. And I've repeated this story multiple times. But this is if you're new to the channel, this is a story. In 2018, I was calling a group manager in New Haven, and I was talking to her about an audit case. And I always like to talk shop. I always like to talk shop with the IRS employees to figure out things, because it helps me out all over the place. So I just asked her. I said, "Hey, how are your international audits going? How you guys doing?"
we just lost our host.
Yeah, well, I mean, the answer to the question, he'll be back in a second. The answer to the question is simply this: that the reason that the middle class all around the world are audited is because their situations are simple and it doesn't require a particularly sophisticated auditor to audit them, right? But you get into whoever these wealthy people are. I don't know how many of these people, these billionaires, I don't know how many of them I've actually met in my life. I don't think too many of them. Where do you begin auditing somebody like that? I mean, you need somebody with an extremely sophisticated understanding of this stuff to even begin the audit.
We
And
can't hear you.
Here we go.
Okay,
All right. Sorry about that, guys.
that's all right. Now we can hear you.
All right.
yeah, and the reality is that most tax administrations, I mean, they may have a few
Yeah.
people like that, obviously, but that's
All right.
not.
You know what? I'll just kick myself out here. Hang on a second.
And you talk about roll ran broadcast. That is it.
So this thing is driving me nuts. 1 second. All right. There we go. John, could you just fill me in where we are with my technical difficulty?
I think we're all good.
No, it's not.
Poised for you
Okay,
to
hang on.
resume directing our
Oh, here
conversation.
we go. That's
Where we are.
Here we go.
Welcome back, Anthony.
Thank you so much.
But basically, what we're talking about here is, I mean, I think it was Kennedy at his speech at Yale in 1962, memorable speech written by his speechwriters, Ted Sorensen, I would expect. But what he says is something to the effect of, "It's not the lie, okay, that we fear. It's the myth. It's the myth."
Yeah.
And this is exactly what's going on in this discussion about the taxation of Americans abroad. I mean, it's so absurd. It is so absurd that you notice that so you want to have a discussion about the taxation of Americans abroad. Notice the first thing is that, first of all, you divert it because, well, it's only a compliance issue. It's not a tax issue, which is an outrageous distortion of reality. But then what they do is they start talking about resident Americans who are not Americans abroad. I mean, it's the most idiotic, unfocused conversation. And I think where Solomon and Jim have been very, very good, and I think almost alone on this. And this is where I think the headway on this really is going to be made, is that what this is ultimately is a competitive issue for America. It's a problem for Americans to leave the country and participate in companies outside the United States, etc. No matter how you feel about the 9 million Americans abroad, at the end of the day, this is a much, much bigger potential problem for the 350 million Americans who live in the United States, who, as Ron Paul would suggest, have just had the Great Wall of citizenship, double taxation, in fact, erected in front of them as a barrier. And then when they try to leave, they're shocked by this sort of invisible dog fence, when they find out about this stuff. And not only, and this is one of these rare situations in life where not only is this a moral issue where Republicans overseas, Solomon, Jim et al. Have taken the lead, where not only is this a moral issue, but this is a very significant competitive issue for America down the road, because America's brand is not, just sort of the domestic economy. America's brand, what it has been in the last century, is a model for the world, right? In terms of the right thing to do.
Right.
And this type of stuff where, my God, they're forcing their citizens to renounce in order to be compliant with their own laws. Okay. I mean, that is the absolute antithesis of what that brand was in the last century. And this is why people like Solomon, Jim, Republicans overseas, by framing this not only as a moral issue, but as a competitive issue for America. And I would like to add, I would suggest that Solomon and Jim add this, and the branding of America for what it stands for worldwide. I mean, this stuff feeds directly into it.
Yeah, and now I remember what I was talking about is that, what we have here, it's not a situation, who does this hit the most? And it's regular, normal people, because I have wealthy clients. They can afford it. We can work around it. There's options. Wealth gives you options. When you're not insanely wealthy, oh boy, it's a little harder. Yeah. And that's really the problem that we have. And this is the point I was trying to make, is that, the problem that the IRS has with enforcing this is that, it's so complicated, right? We know that, right? The compliance costs are insane. And there's some points that are intentionally vague, or maybe intentionally vague. I don't know. But there's definitely a wide variance of what's possible. And the tax industry is writing a lot of the law on this because it's vague. And the point that I called the group manager in New Haven, and I asked her how our international audits were going. And this is what she said. She laughed. I go, oh, why is that? She goes, well, half of my auditors refuse to touch them. I said, what? Huh. And I said, well, why is that? And she said, oh, because they're too complicated. And I'm like, and then if you actually look at the other point to this is, if you look at the Treasury Inspector General's report and this is the point, then this is the end of large business and international, and that's the big division at the IRS, large business and international. Those are handling the biggest stuff. Well, actually 60% of their cases are individuals, 60%. Wow. And the thing is because they're easy to go after. And they even say that and the Treasury Inspector General says, well, look, here's the issue the IRS has is this international compliance is too hard. It takes way too many hours for them to go through there and find a tax bill, because it's just, in order to find the tax bill, you got to do the work. You got to go through the work, and it's incredibly difficult. So how they deal with it is this, like, well, we have a whole bunch of foreign penalties, and those are easy. Hey, look, the requirement was there. You didn't file. Okay, great. Boom. We could do this in a few hours. And that's actually what the Treasury Inspector General uncovered, is that the IRS, like, just trying to get rid of cases. Hey, look how much money we're generating or assessing through our audits, whether they collect it or not, they don't care. They don't count that. But hey, look at how much we're assessing. This is how good we're doing with the scarce resources that we have. But again, that's just going to, and these are the things that just go after, like, the worst place to be if you're examined internationally is if you're elderly and you have about $1 or $2 million in savings. That's really the worst place to be, because they will go after you harder than anybody else. If you're retired, they look at you as an easy target, because you might be at the end of your life. You might have dementia. You might not remember things. You might say stupid things. They love going after that. And I've seen that firsthand. It's elderly with life savings. Oftentimes were born outside the U.S. and the money they have is inherited, and it was just given to their parents, and they're supposed to give it to their grandkids. And now they're the ones who are losing it all. And that's
Right.
actually what's going on. And that is why it's a moral issue for me. And that's one of the things that gets me so upset when people have their entire life savings, and something their family, someone sacrificed, saved for. Hey, yeah, I want you to have this so you have a good life. And then nope, the IRS comes like, well, no, you didn't file a form. You didn't file a form. Therefore, we can take your entire net worth and actually torture you through this entire lengthy process. We can go and foreclose you out of your house, and they will do that, and they have done that. So the abuse is insane. So the people who claim that this will benefit the rich are just ignorant. They're ignorant, and they really should not be listened to. They don't know what they're talking about. They really don't. So that was my point. That's my point. So go ahead.
I would go so far as to say that the extremely wealthy may, in many circumstances, actually be the beneficiaries of citizenship taxation.
Yeah.
Totally, I agree with that.
Yeah, because it allows them to live outside the United States. It gives them a certain freedom of mobility that people who are tax residents of other countries, perhaps examples Canada, Australia, may not have. But I think a point that needs to be made here in very succinct, practical terms is that we come back to the middle class people who are the ones affected. They are affected because they cannot both be compliant with US tax laws and engage in responsible and financial planning according to the tax rules in the country where they live. And that's why they renounce. They renounce because they cannot comply. Okay, that's one group. Another group are the people who've been involved in the whole penalty assessment thing and renounce not to avoid taxation because these penalties rarely have to do with tax.
Yes.
Renounce to protect themselves from a system that is being applied to them but was never intended to apply to them. And this is absolutely got to go. I mean, look, I spend my professional life helping people expatriate, whether they're green card holders, US citizens. I have had very, 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 very few people who I would consider to be wealthy. These are just middle class, everyday people who are desperate to be able to live their lives as free people and in accordance with the tax laws of the countries where they really live. That's who are renouncing. And this business of, oh my God, we have to, protect the possibility of wealthy Americans. They already avoid taxation the same way they would if they were living outside the United States because of citizenship taxation.
Yeah, no, and if you are a wealthy individual, the U.S. is probably the best tax haven in the world. So
it is if you're not a citizen, and that's another interesting point.
Yeah.
I said this jokingly. Well, as you know, I never really joke. If you think about what I'm saying, okay. But if you want, in the 21st century, tax havens have basically been abolished, except for one country, the United States of America, unless you're a U.S. citizen. So if you want access to a tax haven, why don't you just renounce your citizenship and leave your assets in the United States?
Yeah.
I mean, most people won't do that, of course. But I mean, if you look at it logically, I mean, these rationalizations, these justifications these people make are so incredibly stupid that they never could survive a rational discussion about this, which is why they don't want to have a rational discussion. It's why the tax compliance industry says, oh, no, it's not a tax problem, it's a compliance problem. Well, it includes a compliance problem, to be sure, but it is.
I know, right? I don't get it. Yeah,
obviously, it is obviously a tax problem. Where you get these, Democrats, Senate,
I do see a lot of. Hey, I see that.
Wide and say, oh my God, look, dual citizenship, living on, it's an opportunity for tax evasion.
Right.
Hey,
I see that. I do see the comments are stacking up, and people, please keep them coming. We're going to get to them at the end. We'll get to your comments, so please keep them coming. Before we get to that, I want to ask Solomon. So, what's the next step? What's going to happen next? Where are we going? So so Donald Trump agreed to this, and we talked about the other day that this could be done by legislation. We won't get into that much right now. We talked about it before. Legislation fiction is better. So what's the game plan here? What's the next step here? What should we be doing?
This is my view, okay? Only my view.
Okay.
What we should do is to be part of Trump 2025 tax reform package. And it's not pretty process. I call, sausage making process.
Yeah. It's an interesting sausage
But
too,
I
yeah.
can promise you, two people I will take with me will be John Richardson and Jim Gasser. And they've been there before 2017. And one thing I learned is you really have to have two things going for you. Personal relationships, okay? Personal relationships with U.S. Congress and personal relationship with the congressional leaders, for example, with Speaker Mike Johnson. Now, you have a picture of me and with Speaker Johnson.
Oh yeah, I think, yep, I got the here. Yeah, here we go. We have the proof. We have the proof. Here we go. It's not let's see where that he is. Right, there he is. There you go.
Right. With Speaker Johnson is very, very important. Now you're talking about you can work with not only Ways Means Committee, you also work with speakers, staff members, and staff members of the House Ways Means Committee. And to make sure your package is there and the issue you want is not going to be watered down, okay? And another thing is I don't care what is called, okay? But I want it to be done. The goal is ending double taxation. It means you only pay tax where you earn an income.
Yeah.
And not paying tax on non-US sourced income, period. That's where we're going, okay? And since you have President Trump's picture there, like I said, I need to work with at least White House 3 shops, right? Political shop and legislative shop and communications shop. So you can put another picture there and to show, and that's personal relationship, right?
Yeah.
Personal relationship and the trust is so important, right? And that means when I tell the president that's what I want, and he will tell those political shops and staff members and legislative shops, staff members, and get that portion done as well, okay? So that's the package, how you're going to get in. Then also do the same thing. You already showed those pictures at the Senate level and with Senate Finance Committee, and those 3 senators I can count on: Rand Paul, Mike Lee, and Rubio, right? And with those senators, they can assign their legislative staff to work with me and work with Senate Finance Committee.
Right.
And
by the
that's
way,
how
I guess we are kind of assuming a Trump victory. He is way up in the polls right now, so we are assuming that. So
not only assuming that, he is way ahead in 7 swing states. At this point, I watch internal numbers, okay? And I also have informants in Democrats abroad. Okay. So I know what they're thinking, what they're talking about. Panicking is the word. Okay. I also know how we're going to win. And we're going to win big.
Oh, wow. All right.
And
well, hey,
at this point,
I want to get. Yeah, I want to get to. I want to get to some comments here. We got a bunch of new people, a bunch of current listeners. So let's get through. Let's see here. Here we go. Yeah, Sunset Joe. We want to end double taxation. Let Americans abroad be as free as all other foreigners living abroad. There we go. Right. Totally. Exactly. Sunset Joe, exactly right. Second class, maybe third class citizenship, right, abroad. Here we go, Doug. Doug, good morning, gentlemen. So great to see Solomon on this. I know, right? He's a face of Republicans overseas. Right on. Thank you. And here's a nice one from Carl. You guys are rock stars. Keep up the great work. Thank you very much. We love doing it. And here we go. Yep, Michael Carroll, just significant moral issue, right? I mean,
Yes.
that's what it's about. Anime completionist. What a great name. What a great. That is intriguing. FAC and FBAR signing American creativity abroad. Oh, by the way, that would be something I would look for as well. Haven't gotten to that, but one of the things I would look to, Solomon, maybe you can help me out, is that the FBAR itself, and this is something that John and I have covered extensively on the channel, and John was as well. The FBAR does not appear to actually have a law that authorizes it. We've talked about this. 31 USC 5314 is actually something that regulates monetary instruments, not bank accounts. And the FBAR regulation invents the law. And so after Loper Bright, I would hope that we could maybe have the FBAR actually go away, or FBAR actually line up to what the 3153 mandates. And that's the Secretary of Treasury is supposed to create a report of monetary instruments that are imported and exported in and out of the United States. And that's not at all what the FBAR regulation is. It's something completely different.
I think this is a good moment. I want to get something into this discussion that I don't think has been sufficiently in this today, right?
Okay.
We have talked previously about a legislative fix, change in the law, and a regulatory fix. Now, the significance of President Trump's announcement, bearing in mind that the president appoints the Treasury Secretary, right?
Yes.
All the action for a regulatory fix. This is incredibly significant because it opens up that as a possibility. And I mention this because I've seen, obviously, this bantering online about, oh, well, the only change this is through Congress. And while agreeing that a legislative fix would be the gold standard, to be sure, this can be fixed mostly, by regulation. And I emphasize that this is the difference between this kind of announcement from a candidate for president versus, say, a comment from somebody who's running for Congress or something like that, right?
Right. Because Trump
And also keep one thing in mind. From my perspective, again, is get a camel's nose in the can. And this is a first step, is a giant first step, but just a camel's nose in the tan. And you can do lots of stuff, right? Once you get in the tan. And so that another thing is, you're right. And the president appoint Treasury Secretary, and we can do lots of lobbying there as well. And I will take you with me, John.
Take me too.
Take you too, of course.
All right. So, and here's a question. Will Rand Paul get on board? I think so. We have Rand Paul, right?
Yes.
And then as you get into the socialists, people always looking at, socialists are always, this is what Jason's saying, because this is when we were talking about, the threat of, rich people getting away with it. It's like, this is kind of a good point, Jason. I kind of see it. Socialists are always looking to gaming the system because they are the ones actually gaming us. Economic freedom and minimal government involvement. People sparks like, yeah, Jason, that's a good point. Who's really gaming, and this is it, right? If a wealthy person wants to game the system, no one will stop them. Yes. No, it's legal. Trust me. No, you can hire me and you can game the system. I'm sorry. You can do it. Why should all American citizens be punished while the American government searches for terrorists or, for money launderers? The American government knows why they're wrong.
Wasn't there great?
Why? Right. Yeah. That's a good question. Why else would the cost of renouncing go up more than tenfold? It's obvious, right? Sunset Joe, our founding fathers would have disapproved of double taxation. I'm like, well, I would think that would depend on which founding father you asked. I'm not entirely sure. Our history, it might not be the same thing that we think. Oh, here he is. He showed up. Thank you so much. Parvez. There we go. Parvez. There we go. No, I said it right that time. The second time I said it right. Thank you very much. Great to see you on here. And let's see here, Jason Miller. It's important now. But Jason, we're trying to show you the whole point of this is like, this is not some pipe dream that we need to show. Like, no, this is serious. And so that's the point we're showing it, is that this is something that's been going on a long time, and that we have an actually, Solomon has a real game plan. So that's why we went and showed this, not just to show off.
Yeah, listen, I want to add to this. Okay, I think from our last pod, if I'm not mistaken, I think Jason is in Canada.
Yep.
And I just want to say to you that I think it was in 2017, Solomon and Jim Gosser, it's actually my invitation, came to Toronto. And we,
Right.
we had a major, I would call it a major event
Yes,
on,
we did.
on this whole issue, which, at one time
Yeah, he's in Canada. Yep.
I had
He's
a
in
video.
Canada. Yep.
Yeah. So this is somebody, a group of people who, really have been working at this in a major way, behind the scenes, without seeking anything for it, simply because it's a moral issue for many years. And what this is simply a recognition that, unfortunately, in life, being on the right side of the issue is not necessarily enough.
Yeah.
Okay, that there are times when opportunity is created through connection, and I think to some extent this is very important to emphasize that the opportunity is enhanced precisely because of these connections, which have are the result of years and years and years of work. Okay, I mean, this stuff's not just coming out of last week or something.
Yeah. That's right.
Also on the connection side, think about this. The pictures Anthony just showed everyone are my personal political chips. Okay, think that way. And I have been building this for last 24 years as a Republican National Committee man.
Yeah.
Guess who I'm cashing in those chips for? For 9 million overseas Americans, for the moral issue. Okay? And so anyone wants to criticize, go for it.
Go for it.
Show
Yeah.
me what you have done for 9 million overseas Americans.
Ooh, all right. Here's another one. Here we go. Hopefully, John and Solomon will be allowing to the Treasury sector. Oh, who will be Anthony? And yes, I do.
Yes, Anthony, I would take you too.
Because my goal, I think that the U.S. Treasury, the goal of the U.S. Treasury should be to make every American richer. That's what I think the goal of the U.S. Treasury should be, and not to not for this craziness, whatever it is.
Anthony, you're talking the second American Revolution here. Okay.
Yeah, right. Oh, it'd be different. Yeah, things would be different, right? All expats, regardless of political leaning, should be privy to this live chat. Absolutely.
Well,
Thank you.
On that point, a lot of them, and this is very interesting. I mean, I'm going to be brutally honest here. Actually, I think I'm always brutally honest.
Yeah, you kind of are. Yeah.
But at this moment in time, the single biggest impediment to getting this change is, in fact, individual Americans abroad. Make no mistake about it. I mean, you can see this in all over the internet. These discussion groups. This idea, this sense that A, this can't be changed, and B, I think that probably there are more Democrats living outside the United States than Republicans, and this sort of this reflexive, oh my God, this word comes from somebody associated with Republicans, therefore it's suspect. I mean, this is what's going on, and this is I find this deeply offensive as somebody who's been involved in this for the number of years that I have. And at this moment, what is necessary, in addition to all the work done by this small number of people, I don't need to rename them, but it has absolutely got to be supported by individual Americans who understand that this is not a partisan issue. As Americans, what should unite them is far, and does unite them, is far greater than what divides them. And this is an issue of the value of their citizenship. They're not being forced out of their citizenship, and frankly, the futures that their children and relatives will have going down the road. And these people have got to come together, throw off the partisanship, and understand that they need to support the very few people who really are trying to get this changed. Okay? I mean, I find this infuriating. I mean, I'm not. I'm basically, I guess, if I'm anything, I'm an independent. I'm not a partisan person, but I've got to say, okay, that it is Republicans overseas in the spectrum of political activity who have recognized this as the moral issue that it is, and have since at least as early as 2012 or whatever been involved and organized any of a number of initiatives to get this stuff changed. And I strongly urge individuals, wherever you may be, to support this and to support it now.
There you go. Right on. And
Amen.
so we got time for one more comment. How can I help you? And this would this is how we'll close it. Okay. So John, how would you answer
Well,
this?
the first thing is you push back. Anytime you hear somebody saying this will never change, every time you hear somebody saying change can happen only through Congress, anytime you hear somebody say, unless it comes from my political party, I'm not going to support it, you turn these people around and you say that it is time for individual Americans to join in what really is, I think, a moral crusade to fulfill the American dream of freedom wherever they may live in this world.
Right on.
Because at the present time, these rules are completely eradicating the notion of Americans being free people. It is visible today only with respect to Americans abroad because of the fact on citizenship taxation problem. But I've tried to make this point, and I will make it again, that those 9 million people, well, who cares about them? They can die, whatever. We don't care about them. But there are 350 people in the United States whose personal freedom is threatened by this set of rules. They must be changed now.
Right on.
Totally.
Right.
I agree.
And that here's a great one from Carl. Just basically the same thing. What are some good arguments against Americans overseas?
The argument is this: that, you know what, buddy, I'd like you to imagine a world where you're in fact not the center of it. Okay, I'd like you to imagine a world where you were designing a just tax system and rules for mobility for everybody, including the people who may have circumstances that are different from you, including your neighbors who are not American citizens, who live next door to you in your country of residence, who are suffering from this as well, including your children whose opportunities in life are diminished. It is time for people to look at this objectively as a problem for all and not simply take the position that, well, I don't have any foreign assets. It doesn't affect me, so it doesn't matter. You were wrong. There's a saying, and this is a little bit extreme, and I'm not saying is exactly analogous, but it did come to my mind as I was saying this. The only thing that is necessary for evil to prevail is for good people to do nothing.
Totally.
Yeah.
Amen
Yeah.
to that.
Yeah, and I would say that, and I'm going to go to some moral arguments right here. I think this is it. It's not a Democratic issue. It's not a Republican issue. It's not a
Right on.
It's an American issue that affects Americans abroad, and really, and I would say it affects Americans inside the U.S. because guess what? That your opportunity overseas, you may never see it. You didn't see it. You don't see that. You were denied it because it never showed up because, hey, you're an American and it didn't even come across. So you don't even know what you're missing out on. That's what I would say. And also, Jim's, I'll get to you, Jim here. The support from our laugh is really big, right? On Kudlow. I mean, there you go. He's an established player. That's fantastic. And we just want to underline that. All right. So, but Solomon, to you,
Actually,
what would you say?
I want to do a shout out to Jim Gossard, okay, very specifically, because Jim Gossard is essentially the apostle for the reinforcement of the message that this affects American competitiveness everywhere. There's no better person to explain this than Jim Gossard, who I think 2 days ago on this podcast talked about, the 5 different tax lies that he has had. And while we're talking about, a small group of people who've committed to this crusade and made a difference, Jim Gossard needs to be at or near the top of the list. So thank you, Jim.
Yes. And also, Jim Gossard is my worldwide executive vice president. And I will take him and John and Anthony, 3 of you guys, to safeguard our sausage making process.
There you go. All right, count on me. Right, and you can count on this channel. And I would say this: we're gonna be on it. We will be on this channel, so be sure to subscribe. And so this is going through because we are going to be on it. This is fantastic. So, anything else to do? Just back to Jason's question: How can Jason help you, Solomon?
Well, one thing is when I put out a tweet, okay, my tweets usually promote this thing, and please share. And even though I got over 200,000 followers, but more people share and more overseas Americans share. I mean, that's very, very important.
Right. And Solomon, do I have your Twitter handle right? Oh, Solomon, is that right? Do I have it right there? I just typed it in there.
That's correct. You got it there.
So you can follow him on X, Twitter. Follow Solomon, retweet.
And you know what you should be doing when you put these Twitter handles up, Anthony, you should put
yours is up here. I'll get John. I'll get yours up too.
It's easier to read.
What's that?
When you put up these things, put up capital S, capital Y, so it's easier.
Oh, okay, got it. All right, here, yeah. All right, got it. All right, well, here
I'm
you.
just on a going forward basis.
All right, we'll do that for clarity. All right, well, fantastic. So, and I guess, and you know what, and I would say this, you know, the best thing that everyone can do, and it really spread the word and get people to watch even a little bit of the show. You know, help them understand this issue. That it really affects them, and just, you know, continue to support and continue to believe. And then I'd also say this, I do this every morning. I pray for the end.
That helps.
I do pray for the end of double taxation. It is one of the things I pray for. So I think it seems to be working. It does seem to be working. So.
Look, let me just add something here. Okay. The partisan nature of this, the political process is making it very difficult to have this conversation. This has nothing to do with the political parties. Yeah. It has nothing to do with political ideology. People, the support of individual, the visible support and enthusiastic support of individuals is necessary, and they need to see this not as supporting their political party, but as supporting who they are as American citizens. That's how they've got to see this.
It's like I guess we're asking people to put yourself ahead of your political party.
Oh,
I mean, that's what we're actually doing. Put yourself first. Don't worship your party. Get the thing for you.
Actually, I call let Adam Smith invisible hand work for you.
Sure.
Yeah.
Adam Smith would not approve of citizenship taxation. In fact, I guarantee you.
Guarantee, yeah, absolutely.
Nor would any 17th century liberal.
Yeah.
Okay. You know, I mean, this is, I don't know what has happened over the last, well, particularly the last 30 years, but it's not good.
All right. Well, I want to thank you. I want to thank both of you for your hard work over the years.
Thank you.
And again, and shout out to Jim for everything he's done. This is completely amazing. Again, I would suggest everyone follow us on Twitter for the conversation. And be sure to subscribe, share this channel, like it. That helps it boost up YouTube. You know, if you share it on social media, if you share it on Facebook, you get likes there. It helps raise it. So do whatever you can individually to share the message of this, to get this out there. We have and this is really the thing I love about this community. I think it's really the smartest, greatest people.
And we make you an official channel to end the double taxation.
And double taxation. We're going to do it. We're going to do it.
Yeah, I think there should be an official channel for that, actually.
Right.
And double taxation, the official channel. All right. Well, we'll get it done. Sounds great. I want to thank everybody. For joining us today. And again, there'll be people watching this on replay. So again, leave your comments. We'll respond to them. So again, if you're going to watch this on replay, again, same thing. Please share this as much as you can. Get the word out there. All right. For John Richardson and Solomon Yue.
Thank you.
Of the biggest heavy hitters in this. I want to thank everyone for joining us. Thank you so much.
Goodbye.
Thanks.